This program is intended for informational and educational purposes only. All views and opinions expressed are the views and opinions of the individuals and sponsors presenting them, and not the LTB network. Enjoy the show.
This is Sex and Science Hour with Brian Sovereign and Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Get your freak on.
This is Sex and Science Hour. Welcome to the show. This is episode 11, and we thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie.
And of course, I'm Brian, and it's the hour where everybody likes to party.
Yep, that's right. We at least take 1 hour a week to party, right, Brian?
That's
the rest
right.
We are puritanically working hard and not having any fun at all, right?
Yeah, if the word puritanical ever gets used on me, I don't know what I do.
Well, speaking of puritanical, there was an interesting story that came across my desk this week. Apparently, the state where we live, New Hampshire, is repealing adultery laws.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there are still laws on the books in a lot of places in the U.S., speaking of puritanical, prudish places.
Is this like how in Virginia there's a law against...
Yes, there are oral sex bans in place in several places in the United States. And apparently in a couple of states, you know, it's felonious to have sex with a married person. And, you know, the only time that ever gets trotted out is like during particularly nasty divorces. But this is just yet another example of how the laws don't reflect what public opinion actually says. You know, people always claim, oh yeah, we live in a democracy. If you want to change the system, all you have to do is just contact your legislature and just tell them, you know, we want this. The people said this. So, and then they'll do it. Wrong. That's not true. They don't care what you say. And it's obvious because, you know, most people now believe that gay people should be able to marry each other and marijuana should not be criminalized, marijuana use or possession or whatever, and that adultery should not be a crime. But yet all those things are criminal in a lot of places in the United States.
It's so crazy. I mean, how is adultery? Well, no, I know how adultery is still an idea because honestly, it's defined by religious books. It's not even like an idea in life.
They pulled that one straight from the Bible, pretty much. I mean...
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, and you know, people will come out and say, well, yeah, but there's only one person you love and you should only be with them. Yeah, until that person dies, and then you're perfectly fine with falling completely in love with somebody else. I mean, come on, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, some people love to be in monogamous relationships, and that's
fine.
What they like, and that's how they feel
that's
comfortable,
all right.
And that's totally fine. But I'm just saying it shouldn't be a law.
Yeah, and like you can't,
it's not everyone.
Exactly. And what? Like you own that person's genitalia? That you can like actually bring down the hammer of the law? You know, you can bring down the gun on
that's
somebody
the
and lock them up?
Sort of form of control freakery, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of these. Like what in Alaska, there's that law in Fairbanks?
I don't know what you're talking about.
In Alaska, there's a law that moose can't have sex in the city.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
right.
Who do these people think they are?
I'm sure those meese will get right on like reading the law books and making sure that they don't in the town square.
Or what's the one in Michigan? This one's one of my favorites. The one in Michigan is that if you...
Oh, is this corrupting?
If you corrupt a young woman or a woman, and they're saying woman, not girl, you know, so I mean, whatever that definition of age, I guess would be 18 by the law, by the other laws in Michigan. If you corrupt a woman, you know, in Michigan, you can serve some crazy amount of time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, most of these things are only enforced because, like, they know, you know, the cops know and the politicians know that, you know, people don't agree with these laws and that they break them all the time and that they're a total joke. The only time that they get enforced and pulled out is when somebody is being targeted. basically.
Yeah, this is pretty common. I mean,
like
there's
the sodomy laws got, in Texas, there was this big Supreme Court case years ago where, basically there were two guys and they're in a relationship and their neighbor didn't like them queers. And so he called the cops on them when he heard them having sex, and they got prosecuted for it. And I think the law actually got struck down because of that, because it wasn't, it was clearly like blatantly unfair. But
yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of these laws too, certainly not the ones in New England or in New Hampshire, the one we're talking about, but in New England, there's definitely this puritanical attitude, which fortunately, we've done a lot in abating and pushing back against.
Who's we? You and me?
Yeah, maybe.
We are activists against social conservatism.
The year I moved, 2 years later, I saw the statistics. Okay, New Hampshire, there was like this most. What was it was something like the most. It was by a Christian website, and essentially the most debased states. In 2010, okay, yellow or like white and yellow were like, they're pretty puritanical, and then red was like, they must be the spawn of Satan there.
Red.
And I'm telling you,
red.
In 2000, I moved to New Hampshire in 2011. In 2010, New Hampshire was yellow. 2013, that state's as red as a commie. It is red.
Mission accomplished, Brian.
Hey, I'm here.
Well, I mean, it's a great point about social conservatism because, one point first before that about the laws, there are laws on the books against playing cards, against dancing, against all kinds of just ridiculous things that people break all the time. Not to mention, tell me the cop who arrests you has never taken a sip of alcohol before his 21st birthday. Give me a break.
Oh, come on.
Tell me that the cop who arrests you who pulls you over for speeding has not sped himself that day or herself. I mean, it's
but they're above the law.
They're doing it to protect you for your own good, right? For your safety. It's always your safety is
laws
their primary
are meaningless
concern.
if they don't apply to everybody.
Absolutely. And that's what we have is just, laws apply to some people. There's one set of rules for them, and then there's one set of rules for us. But it's like these laws, keeping them on the books really serves no purpose except just that people are in a constant state of violation of some law or another. So they can always
3 felonies a day, right?
Get you for something,
Yeah. I mean, actually, just real quick, the point I was going to bring up earlier was that some of these laws were specifically like targeted towards, even though they don't say it in the law, they were specifically targeted towards black people.
Yeah. Marriage licenses, the whole history of that.
The entire history of marriage.
The only reason you have to get a license is so somebody can say no.
Right.
And they were originally meant to prevent interracial marriages.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these things are still on the books, even when I hope most people, maybe they don't, would agree, that we're all human and all equal.
But, maybe there's a glimmer of hope or a silver lining. Maybe New Hampshire is finally just starting to turn this tide against social conservatism. I don't really have any faith at all in the political process. But, maybe on a cultural front, people are starting to kind of make that connection that, hey, why is it illegal to have sex with a married person again?
Right.
So that turned into kind of a rant, but I just wanted to quickly mention that because I thought it was kind of cool. And now we're going to a story that's not so cool. Condoleezza Rice has been appointed to the board of Dropbox, the water board. Oh, no, excuse me, the executive board. Oh, the executive board. Or the advisory board, whatever. Yeah. But, of course, there's a lot of waterboarding jokes, What can you do except joke about a tragedy like that? They've appointed her as a name, I suppose. I mean, I don't really know what she adds to Dropbox. The statement from Dropbox's CEO said something like, "We sought out a leader who could help us expand our global footprint." Oh, she's expanding things all over the globe, that's for sure. Dr. Rice has had an illustrious career as a provost of Stanford, board member of companies like Hewlett-Packard and Charles Schwab, and former United States Secretary of State. We're honored to be adding someone as brilliant and accomplished as her to our team.
I was going to say that. I mean, that's all ridiculous, but I was going to say that she is an intelligent woman. I mean,
some people use their intelligence for good, and some people use it for utter abject evil.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is, when the Snowden revelations came out, some of the slides from the NSA clearly stated that Dropbox was a target.
Yeah,
and it's like, well,
that was their coming soon list.
Yeah,
they were
that was
the coming soon.
And yeah, I mean, this is pretty clearly, they got their. Soon is now.
So for people who are maybe like international, they've probably heard of her, but this is basically a politician who was involved in starting the Iraq War.
And in starting PRISM. She was aware of PRISM.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's Secretary of State. She's a direct link to the NSA.
Yeah, she actually authorized a bunch of warrantless wiretapping stuff. She defended the torture policy at Guantanamo Bay. That's why we talked about waterboarding, which is a form of torture where somebody is made to feel like they're drowning. And I mean, really, like, it would not be an outlandish statement, and many have made it, to call her a war criminal. Yeah. And she's on the board of Dropbox, which is a company that has very sensitive data from a lot of people. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So obviously this is quite a concern.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people will say it's like, well, that's why they got her in, is because she can help them thwart PRISM. Well, no, then her rhetoric right now should be that the NSA overreached. That's not her rhetoric.
Yeah.
In fact, she'd be a complete hypocrite in the first place. Not to say people can't change their mind. She could, but she's done nothing to show that she's changed her mind.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you could say, well, she's not in political office anymore, but I mean, most of these politicians who start these programs, they wholeheartedly believe that this is the right thing, that like mass surveillance is absolutely required to protect national security and crap like that.
Yeah. I think any company, especially, storage companies like Dropbox, to hire anyone that's a previous politician, especially somebody so closely tied to a lot of the Snowden revelations that have ruined consumer confidence with these things, is just one of the dumbest moves you can make. I dare say it's almost dumber than the move Mozilla made when they just got rid of their CEO because of societal pressure.
Yeah, because he made some anti-gay statements, right?
Well, yeah, and he funded Proposition 8.
Oh, yeah. Some political ploy to like stop gay marriage or something.
Yeah, and so I hope, there's the hashtag going around, Dropbox.
Yeah, there's a website, drop-dropbox.com, which details alternatives to Dropbox and why you could make the choice as a conscious consumer not to use it. What do you think, Brian, as a tech guy, how do you keep your data maybe encrypted in cloud storage, or do you just not use cloud storage? What do you do?
I use Google Drive only because I have like a free account with it.
Do you use Boxcryptor or something like that to keep it encrypted?
I don't use any of that. If I really had something that important, I would use like TrueCrypt. And I would upload my TrueCrypt file, but I'd have to keep re-uploading it. It's really a pain in the butt. I think this is actually a case where we can take a good hint from really hippie culture, and that is go local. I think that's, and what I mean by that is local storage. Yeah. I think that's taking off in spades. I've Trezorit, I've heard a few others.
There's like Spider Oak, doesn't it have an encryption feature?
Yeah, all very fine companies, but I get the sense we need to not just decentralize a lot of our systems, and software and things of that nature that we use. But I think we need to really decentralize everything and recognize that maybe the internet could kind of be a central point of failure.
Well, it's interesting because there was, who was it this week that came out and said that there's a real vulnerability because like a third of the internet is like on Amazon servers.
Yeah, this is Zurich International. I'm going to be talking about this more on my own show, Sovereign Tech, or Zurich Insurance, I should say.
Oh yeah, they're an insurer, so they underwrite insurance policies. And they're like, this is a big problem.
Right. And they pretty much said that, if with these cloud companies, if one of them goes down, okay, fine, you're not relying on the cloud company, but the company you're outsourcing your work to might outsource their work to a cloud company. Yeah. And there's just this chain reaction that can occur where all of this cloud storage,
where if the big cloud company has a problem, then it's an issue for it affects a lot of people.
Exactly. Right? In ways that you don't know. I mean, the best cloud, there's not even really great alternatives to Dropbox. I mean, there's OwnCloud, but that's more of your own. That's more of me saying like go local. OwnCloud is where you store it yourself on your server.
On your own cloud?
Yeah, exactly. You have a few others. I mean, there's Box. There's
now like the computer products that are being made, like a lot, like you buy a Chromebook, it really doesn't have very much local storage. It's all like Google. It comes with 100 gigabytes Google Drive, right?
Yeah, I mean the industry is pushing you. There's solutions to that. I have a Chromebook and I pop a 64 gig, flash drive in the side of it that's smaller than a fingernail.
Yep.
Problem solved. But certainly the industry is pushing people and kind of trying to force people into cloud storage, which is a bad move. I mean, I don't.
I've always been a little like skeptical of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things I use. I mean, I use Google Play Music. I use all kinds of cloud storage.
I do
things,
too, but I don't put sensitive files on there.
No,
I put like voiceovers that I have to share with a client on there that are public anyway.
Yeah, nothing. I never put anything up there that I can't lose. Or that I can't afford to lose.
I think that's a smart move. So you can make your own decisions, but it's always good, I think, for people like us who care about privacy and freedom to report on things like this, so people can be aware of it and make their own decisions about who they want to patronize.
I mean, just picture. I don't see putting her on the board, putting Condoleezza Rice on the board. In my opinion, is very little different than putting George W. Bush on the board.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Yeah, and you can't tell me you wouldn't run away from a company with George W. Bush at the head of it.
Yeah,
I would. I mean, I'm myself. I'm done with Dropbox.
What about a country with that?
That's not a bad idea either. Run the hell away.
Exactly. And it seems like more people are leaving the U.S., but we're kind of getting a little away from the topics that I wanted to talk about on tonight's show. One thing that I wanted to also talk about in this first segment, too, that's kind of like news of the week, is the MadeSafe crowdfunding fundraiser.
Now, this is a solution.
Yeah, this is a solution to Dropbox.
To what we just talked about.
Yeah.
MadeSafe is a big deal. I mean, it's a decentralized, it's like, picture you have a sandbox, okay? And you can put... and your computers all make up this, like a whole bunch of computers make up the sandbox. And essentially you can just keep shifting the grains of sand, but you can all work within the same sandbox between computers. I hope I explained that pretty well.
Yeah, it's like you would log into any device and you would, with a password that you have, you would access a secret location where your data is stored among a peer-to-peer network of computers. And then you would be able to have access to like basically a computer or a desktop that is yours, but you can access it from anywhere with like your passwords, right?
Yeah, and you can access it in the fact that like where MadeSafe is stored. Again, this is kind of a cloud storage thing, but it's stored everywhere and it's not all complete in one spot.
Yeah.
It's genuinely decentralized.
And it's not like a farm of servers run by Amazon.
No.
It's like people's computers and who are in the network. And they get the incentive to be a storer or a shepherd of data, or a farmer, as they call it on MadeSafe, is these safe coins. So people get paid based on the value that they contribute to the network.
Right. And people were clearly very excited about this technology because, again, this is, we want to decentralize everything. That's kind of the attitude that we're hearing around the internet, which is great. Mm-hmm. But, let's face it. I mean, even Bitcoin isn't really decentralized. It has a blockchain and, there's ways to save that, but...
Well, it's distributed. I mean...
It's distributed, It's decentralized from, like, power away from the banks.
Yeah.
But it's not in and of itself completely decentralized. MadeSafe is totally decentralized. On no computer, on no one thing, anywhere is the complete MadeSafe, data collection somewhere to be accessed, which is great.
Sometime we'll have to talk about, like, the costs of decentralization, too, because there are, like, sort of... reasons why it's not the most efficient. So like maybe saying decentralize everything isn't necessarily like the most thoughtful statement, but I mean, it definitely, life could use some more decentralization because a lot of things right now are centralized in a very bad way that gives people control over other human beings that they should not have. So I think we can pretty much all agree on that if we're listening to this show. But anyway, MadeSafe wanted to raise $8 million and they thought they were going to do this in like a month. So what they were going to do is basically issue their own tokens called, safe coins, which is the currency of the network. Or actually, the token they were selling is made safe, or the token they were offering is made safe coin, which can be redeemable for safe coin. So it's like one layer removed. And they did this on the Mastercoin protocol. And they wanted to raise about $8 million worth of cryptocurrency over a month, like I said, but actually, they did it in like 5 hours.
Yeah.
It was like too successful. It kind of blew up in their faces. And so actually, Adam B. Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin, my podcast partner, wrote a great article about this for TechCrunch, which was summarily pulled down because he included a Bitcoin tip address, which totally not fair. So he reposted it on letstalkbitcoin.com. And, there's a lot of issues in this. There's the excitement about Made Safe. And then there's also the idea, well, was this fair? Because maybe more people would have wanted to get in on the funding and now they don't really have a chance to. And is it really just a price discovery problem? Because they basically fix the price of these tokens at a certain Bitcoin value. So it's a really fascinating experiment in economics. I'm glad they had a lot of success.
Yeah, that's the thing, is people are excited about Made Safe, and that's great.
But the whole user-created assets thing, it's an experiment. It's going to need some more tweaking. So there's more coming up. Sex and Science Hour is part of the Let's Talk Bitcoin network, and we are so excited.
Wait a minute. What's Bitcoin?
What's Bitcoin?
What's Bitcoin?
Well, you'll have to listen to Let's Talk Bitcoin to find out. It's a twice-weekly podcast, and you can find it at letstalkbitcoin.com.
Okay, I gotta know.
Yeah, you really should probably get on that.
It has a whole network?
Yeah, we're part of it.
How did I not know about this?
You must have missed the memo that we were on their network. Anyway, now back to Sex and Science Hour. Here at Sex and Science Hour, we love EasyDNS. They let you register domains, handle security for your website, email addresses, pretty much anything related to DNS or domain names, they can do it. They have a friendly staff of actual human beings, so if you need customer support, they will always be there for you. Plus, they are outspoken advocates for your internet freedom. And they take Bitcoin, of course. They now have fully managed WordPress and web hosting too, so you can do everything you need related to your website from EasyDNS. Take a look at their website at easydns.com. We think you'll like what you see. Trust easydns.com for your DNS and web hosting needs. Now back to Sex and Science Hour. This is Sex and Science Hour, and we are blasting off into the second segment. Bitcoins are blasting off too, apparently, right, Brian?
Into space, into orbit. Anyway,
they're going into orbit. Yeah, tell me about
Bitcoins
that.
in space.
They've been. They've pretty much been everywhere on the planet. There's been Bitcoin transactions logged in like North Korea and Antarctica.
Yeah.
So they've been there, done that. They've seen the whole world. Now they're going to space, right?
Right on. And a lot of people have been really hopeful for something like this to essentially, like we talked about, if cloud storage systems went down, what do? The blockchain, again, is centralized. You got to have that blockchain. At least one person has to have that blockchain for it to continue on. And, I don't see Bitcoin. So many people have the blockchain. I can't really see that ever being a problem, and they have it locally. But this is pretty exciting to have, literally Bitcoin going into space. And what they're doing is Deep Space Industries, which is a company I've been following for a while. This is they're wanting to mine asteroids.
And there's probably gold in them there, asteroids.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. And now there's going to be Bitcoins with them too. So they'll have it all. But they're setting up a lot of these there's just these small, like 10 centimeter boxes called bitsats. And they're going to be putting them into various satellites. And putting them into space to where there's actually going to be, the blockchain is going to be a network existing literally in orbit, if not further on in the future, because Deep Space Industries, these guys have big plans.
So what are they? Are they like nodes on the Bitcoin network?
Essentially, they're planning on being a complete backup. Like that's the idea.
Okay, so they're running full nodes and storing the whole blockchain on these bitsat things?
Yeah, which is interesting. I'm curious how exactly
do they connect. I guess they're on satellites.
Yeah,
right?
It just runs by satellite. But satellites are really inefficient for that amount of data getting transmitted all the time. It's kind of an inefficient way of doing it. Like, I don't know how many people have ever been on a yacht, but when you've tried to use high-speed satellite internet on a yacht, it's a failure. because
we should all be so lucky to have that problem, Brian.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I can't access the internet on my yacht. Oh, it's so hard. Sorry.
So anyway, but this is a real problem that's been around for a while. Is like cloud cover doesn't allow for. I mean, phones are fine, but like doing full on, even watching a video on YouTube can be a difficult affair. When you're in the middle of nowhere, be it at
Buffy,
sea.
I just can't access YouTube. What's going on with this internet?
Right.
Let me smoke another cigar.
Well, that problem of everybody being on yachts is one of the mission statements of DSI, of Deep Space Industries, is they're saying, look, we can all have the good life. And they're literally trying to put an end to scarcity. And I think that's fantastic. And so for them to want to get involved with Bitcoin is just it's a dream, and now I hope it doesn't stay limited to Bitcoin. I'd like for the Litecoin blockchain, to be up there, whatever other blockchain technologies, I'd love for them all to be up in space, to have that redundancy, or even just for the fact that maybe a lot of people like Elon Musk and some others are planning on being on Mars.
Right.
In the next 10 years.
There was supposed to be a Mars colony in 2014. How did that work out?
It didn't work for 2014, but within the next 10 years, there's at least 2 or 3 companies saying we're going to have humans on Mars. I don't think it's going to happen. But you can
only go if you're a vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
You can't eat space cows.
There's some weird requirements, but I don't think the U.S. government, if it's still around in 10 years, would even allow for it to happen. But that's besides the point. Bitcoin being up in space, that's pretty exciting. Or should I say, blockchain technology being up in space. I think that's the more exciting prospect.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of just a feel-good article, but do you see any potential problems with it? Like, it's all pretty much looking like it's going to be privately funded, right?
Yeah, I can't really picture any issues other than, of course, I don't know how exactly they're getting around the problem of sending data, that amount of data, especially as the Bitcoin blockchain grows, back and forth, very quickly. Like, I could, if there was actually something that terrible to where the redundancy of these systems would be required,
you might not be able to access it.
You might not have everything. You can, and that's okay. Maybe we'll just have to deal with like a few gigs worth of, or whatever, missing of data. But
maybe they'll find some way to improve the communication and data exchange between Earth and sort of distant nodes.
Yeah, but if these things could get worked out, one of the solutions you can do is you could have, and I hate to use these kinds of things, but you could have drones that essentially are a middleman between the satellite and the Earth. Then that actually can solve that transmission speed problem. And so if you had a combination of these things, I think it'd be very interesting for the fact that literally you could be doing, you could be in the Arctic, in the tundra, and you could be doing a Bitcoin transaction, which is really, really exciting to think about. So no, I don't really see any actual issues with this. It is literally a feel-good article.
Okay, cool. Well, I didn't feel very good about the last part of it because in the end of this article, Mike Hearn is quoted saying that the rules of the system are not set in stone, and that's in reference to Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, okay. That is with the article. That's unfortunate. Is that they even quoted him because this is a guy that I think likes to run roughshod on the Bitcoin core.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like there are definitely like core principles that make Bitcoin, and if you change those, then it's not going to be Bitcoin.
Right.
But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with that quote and say maybe it was out of context. But
maybe.
Yeah, I think we need to be really mindful of what makes Bitcoin and kind of keep that preserved. But, that might be a future discussion here on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well. So next we're going to get to an article about, this is really cool. Now apparently these molecular scissors are becoming a reality where it actually lets you go into an organism's tissue and edit DNA. And you can replace chunks of DNA with other chunks of DNA. Molecular
scissors?
Yeah, sometimes they're kind of called that. I don't know if that really super accurately describes this technology because the article is from RT and so it doesn't really give too much technical detail. But basically what they're saying is these scientists have created a technology, and I think they're from MIT here. Yeah, the Broad Institute at MIT. And what it is like they have like a guide that targets what DNA sequence is supposed to be edited.
Right.
And then they have like an enzyme that will actually go in and replace the bad piece of DNA with a different with a good piece of DNA.
So essentially, if your DNA showed a predisposition for a disease.
Yeah, it's great for these genetic diseases where there's just one little mutation, but it causes a huge problem.
Right.
Like, so for instance, it takes out a particular gene that breaks down an amino acid or something like that. And then it's a kid that grows up and, can't eat most foods because they can't break down. Like when you buy something that contains aspartame, like Diet Coke or like Jello, sugar-free Jello or something.
Right.
It'll say on the back, not suitable for phenylketonuria. That phenylketonuria is a disease where they have a single gene mutation where they can't break down certain amino acids, or I think maybe it's a certain amino acid. And so they can't eat foods that contain that. So it's like a very limiting kind of diet.
Yeah, see, now this is an article where it's not all feel good for me because
you're afraid someone's going to go in and edit your DNA.
Well, we've got psychopaths in charge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so this would be a very expensive technology, a medical procedure, and there's a problem with getting these little molecular robots into the cells and into the nuclei of the cells where they need to go. And so the way that they were able to do this in mice was by doing like a high pressure injection. So basically they would take a vein, like say the vein that goes into the liver or something, and they would inject like a solution that contains these little nanobots in it at high pressure so it gets into the cells. But for humans, that's not really considered a safe thing to do yet.
Right.
Although, like the FDA definitely bans experimental treatments where like the person's going to die anyway. So there's really not much you could do to them that would really like, maybe they're willing to take that risk that they might, in testing a new treatment, they might have bad side effects, right?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, the thing is that, okay, sure, you could eliminate disease, but I think once you have the ability to eliminate genetic diseases like that, you also have the ability to introduce them. And I'm glad this isn't easy, to do, but that possibility is out there. And
well, that's a great point, Brian. I'm glad you brought that up. Sure. It's possible that in the future, maybe there's some technology where you could kind of do this to someone without them knowing it. Yeah. Which you kind of can with a virus. I mean, if someone gets infected with a virus, they are great at just doing a job of like injecting DNA into certain cells. And then in some cases, it'll integrate into the person's own DNA.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so this is kind of the double-edged sword of a lot of these, advancements in technology. And I mean, and I love technology. You're a biochemist. Okay. I mean, this is an area of your study. And you get excited about it, but then you remember that like there's people in charge who don't always have your best interests at heart. And in fact, who probably 90% of the time, whether by purpose or not, don't.
Yeah. Well, technology is always a double-edged sword.
Yeah. No, that's a fact. But sometimes I'm not a Luddite by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes I wouldn't mind if maybe things slowed down just a little bit until Leviathan falls on itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. I really do agree with you. I mean, the good news is that it's going to be expensive to do this. So there's a cost barrier there. It's not like they can just, sprinkle some pixie dust in the water and then suddenly everybody gets sick. I mean, I suppose you could do that with like non-high-tech agents anyway, like they could poison us or whatever. If you really want to go down the crackpot realm, you could always have some kind of biological attack like that. But technology also protects us. We have new antibiotics to combat bacterial infections. We have new drugs to combat viruses. And technology like this could cure viruses and genetic diseases too.
Yeah, and I applaud it for that. So it's just always the concern, again, when you have people in power I think that's...
Yeah, stop there.
Yeah, that's really it. That's where the sword always comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of power, this is a really interesting study. Now, you told me about this a couple months ago, and I didn't really get what you were talking about, but now that I saw the article, it makes a lot of sense. And you said that there were these mice, and the researchers could shine a light on their brain and then they would get aggressive, but not if they were having sex. And I was like, wow, that sounds crazy. What is this all about? So I read this article that you kindly brought in, Brian. And what it is actually these are rats that were like genetically engineered to have a switch that's activated by light in a certain part of their brain.
Right.
And that part of their brain is controls basically aggressive behavior.
Right.
And so by shining a light on those neurons, which have been specially made to be sensitive to light, and when they get a light shining on them, they will activate or whatever. Mm-hmm. So when you take those rats, you take those rats and then you shine a light and activate those neurons, they will become aggressive and the males will like attack other males.
Right.
But the whole process of that is inhibited if they're having sex. So sex literally inhibits a powerful genetic switch that can induce aggressive behavior, which is totally amazing.
It's incredible.
People talk about the chimps and bonobos and how, like one is kind of peaceful and they have a lot of sex, but they don't fight. And the other one's more violent and they have less sex. And
yeah, and there was a study too where actually with baboons, that they found a tribe of baboons where most of the males died, and so there's plenty of women for the males left to have sex with.
And
suddenly
they stopped
the society
fighting.
was peaceful.
Wow.
Sex is the answer to everything.
Exactly. There's more coming up here on Sex and Science Hour. Stay tuned. Sex and Science Hour is looking for sponsors. We do our best to do an entertaining show that is heard by thousands of people each week. Do you have a project, business, product, or service that could match our audience's interests? Let us know. Contact Brian at letstalkbitcoin.com to find out more. That's Brian with an I at letstalkbitcoin.com. Here at Sex and Science Hour, we really appreciate your support. We've received tips from listeners, not just in Bitcoin, but with other altcoins. Those are always listed in our show notes in case you want to send us a tip, which we thank you for very, very much. If you don't have Bitcoins, altcoins, or you just want to send us a tip in a way that's free to you, all you have to do is click on something, then you can help us out. Simply do your normal shopping on Amazon through our Amazon affiliate links. Those are listed in our show notes, and we've got Amazon US, UK, and Canada for you. Thank you so much for all your support. And now, back to the show. This is Sex and Science Hour. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
We're going to get very slippery in this segment.
Oh
my. It's not as exciting as you might think.
Break out a gallon of baby oil in the waterbed. Here we go.
Not baby oil, olive oil.
Olive oil. Oh.
This is okay.
Even better.
So this
Tasty.
started a couple days ago. I ran out of olive oil and I wanted to have a salad and put some olive oil on it. So, Brian, you and I went to the grocery store and we were in the olive oil aisle.
Right.
And there
are actually a lot of olive oils to choose from, so it almost warrants an aisle.
There are, but you said something to me, like in passing, that you said something like, have you heard about that study where they tested olive oils and they found that a lot of them were not actually olive oil?
Yeah, they had tons of soybean oil in them.
Yeah, and then I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. So I, quickly looked it up, and lo and behold, there was an actual study done by the Olive Oil Center at UC Davis. They actually have an academic center that studies olive oil. And apparently it's this huge problem. Most of the olive oils that are imported to the U.S. from Italy are, first of all, the ones that claim to be extra virgin do not meet the standards and definitions, either chemically or according to taste, of extra virgin olive oil. It's usually like just olive oil, but it's marked extra virgin.
Right.
So there's that one thing. And then some of them are not even olive oil. Some of them are actually like adulterated with soybean oil, canola oil, other types of cheaper oil.
Up to even like 60 some odd % of it not being actual olive oil.
Yeah, exactly. And, so these researchers actually tested the different olive oils and they found that there was a surprising amount of them that just didn't pass muster as far as being, that meeting several different criteria for being actual pure and high quality extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah, I mean, and this is frankly, what's the big deal? Well, this is fraud.
Exactly.
This is straight up fraud.
It is fraud. It's totally fraudulent to label it as one thing, especially when the health benefits of extra virgin olive oil are so promoted and touted.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody thinks they're buying this thing that's going to make them healthy. Well, no, they're actually buying something a lot cheaper, which doesn't have the same properties as what they think they're getting.
Right. And you say, well, a little canola oil won't hurt you. Listen, canola oil was designed for cleaning engines, not the human body. Okay, I mean, that's a real concern. I mean, I've heard people where they say that canola oil, to whatever degree of excess, can make your heart skip. I mean, that's no good.
I've heard that there's a lot of problems with it. Like, personally, I don't really want to consume it. I would rather eat olive oil. They say canola oil, it can be, it can have a lot of pesticides in it.
Sure.
It can have trans fat in it that's not included on the label. It can go rancid sitting on the shelves. And I'm sure probably most vegetable oils can go rancid, but especially canola oil is very prone to that.
Right.
And it's sold as like this heart healthy thing, but it may not necessarily be. And so regardless of what you think about canola oil, I think you could probably agree that if you buy a bottle that says olive oil, it should be olive oil.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah. And if it says extra virgin, well, it better be extra virgin.
Yeah, give me some extra virginity there.
Absolutely.
That's actually the name of a book.
I understand how difficult it is to find extra virginity, but
there's not much remaining of it in this world, and not that that's a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Who wants virginity anyway, except in
Why
your
is it
olive
even
oil?
A big deal anyway.
I do want it in my olive oil because that means that it's like from the first pressing or something like that. It has these healthy compounds
pressing
in it. Oh God,
touch for the very first time.
See, I'm trying to be all scientific, and yes, touch for.
You put me on the show. What do you?
Touch for the very first time. I love
That's right.
But yeah, so real olive oil is like, there's a couple things you can do if you are concerned about this, by the way, this totally first world problem that we're talking about. Like there are starving kids in Africa and we're talking about, my olive oil isn't pure. But if you're concerned about this, real olive oil should be in a light block bottle to protect it. It should be green, not tan. If it's tan, it's probably not even olive oil at all. So tan in plastic bottles is a bad sign. Olive oil produced in California is more likely to meet the standards. Olive oil bottled or produced, actually, some of them say that they're made in Italy, but they're not really produced in Italy. Most of the time, the olives come from other places like Tunisia and Spain, and then they get imported into Italy. And there, in the packaging plants, they can be like cut with other oils. And apparently in Italy, they actually have like olive oil cops that go around and patrol the plants where they make olive oil.
Oh, it's serious business over there. Vineyards.
But there's a lot of corruption,
right? And
so they get away with it. The politically connected ones,
They're paying off the olive cops.
Yeah, and it's like a huge industry there. So there's a lot of politically connected olive oil producers. So like the big plants, they don't get in trouble for it, and they can just keep cutting the olive oil.
Yeah, quite seriously that occurs.
And
then again, it's like, look, it's just, and you can't say really buyer beware, because there has to be a point where, the company gets held accountable. You're saying you're selling olive oil, and you're not. Mm-hmm. And for some people, it could be a very serious health risk.
I couldn't believe this because I posted about this on Facebook, and it's a case of pretty clear-cut fraud, verified by a reputable scientific academic lab, which is a third-party testing institution, which, libertarians are always talking about, the FDA doesn't keep you safe. We need third-party institutions to test the food to make sure it's safe because the FDA doesn't do it, which the FDA is a government agency. The government doesn't keep your food safe, so we need independent scientists to do it. This is exactly what that was. And libertarians still jump down my throat. I think they just like to argue.
Well, that's why they're libertarians. But really, you got to understand. This is canola oil. It's good for your heart, just like Cheerios.
No, Cheerios are not good for your heart. Read Wheat Belly. Oh, please.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So,
anyway.
So I just wanted to talk about that. I think it's kind of an interesting story, like that. What you think you're getting, you might not actually be getting. So speaking of oil, we actually got an email to our show at sexandsciencehour.com email address from a lady listener asking about natural lubricants for fun and pleasure.
Oh, absolutely.
And, she wanted to get away from these chemical-based products, but she and her husband use condoms for birth control. So what is safe to use with them? Well, The short answer is with latex condoms, you can't use oil because it'll destroy the condom.
Right.
But if you use different condoms that are made of different materials, such as a polyurethane
or lambskin. That's the original.
Yeah, lambskin can work too, but some people say they smell weird and they don't protect against STIs. So those are things to know. But if you use polyurethane condoms, then they are compatible with oils. So you can use olive oil, real extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
You can use coconut oil, almond oil, or pretty much anything you like. Try out a bunch of different ones. Thanks for the question. We've got another story here that I wanted to talk about. This is something I kind of just stumbled across this week. And we always say on this show, we talk often about how government makes it more difficult for people to basically be entrepreneurs, start their own businesses, and do something that supports themselves.
Sure.
It kind of keeps people dependent on jobs that are given by other people. And it kind of disempowers them, I think, because there is a certain power that comes with creating your own job and making, working for yourself. So this is 11 crazy laws, and this is, of course, American laws that keep you from getting a job. I realize we're being a little U.S. focused in this show. I hope it doesn't turn people off. Next week will be different, I swear. But there's so much outrageous stuff going on here, really.
It's tough when you live in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, 11 crazy laws that keep you from getting a job. Did you know that fortune tellers are licensed in Massachusetts?
They're licensed?
This is so bad. Yeah, it's against the law to have, quote, pretended fortune telling, as opposed to, as the article says, authentic fortune telling. Unlicensed soothsayers can face $100 in fines. Of course, if they were any good, they would know when the cops were coming. Any comment I make is just going to insult religion, so I don't want to bother. Yeah, it's like, what? How do you get a fortune teller licensed, really?
Yeah.
Probably just pay the state. It just shows the absurdity of licensing. Anyway, you have to have a license to shampoo in several states in the U.S., including New Hampshire. Well, we got to get rid of that.
You got to work on that one.
Yeah, not that we do anything within the political system, but yeah, that's pretty bad. They have to be a shampoo technician, and they need 30 hours of on-the-job training in the practice and theory of shampooing. Seriously?
Wow. Well, I mean,
these people, oh my God, these people are being allowed to shampoo their own hair every day. This is totally unsafe. It's unregulated.
Anarchy.
Black market shampooing.
Really, the answer is to educate people against using shampoo. You don't use shampoo.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Well, I mean, I'm just afraid of the unregulated shampoo.
That's right, yeah. The cops could burst down the shower.
I did shampoo my hair for many years, and then I found out about the whole no shampoo movement. And basically the idea is that your hair produces like natural oils, and the shampoo can be really a harsh detergent that strips off all the oils, which do actually protect your hair. And so if you're constantly removing those oils with shampoo, some of the hair at the ends will get really dry and be more prone to break off. And also your scalp will kind of overproduce oil to compensate for it being taken away, so the roots will be greasy.
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't know.
You're bald, so you don't have this problem. But it's been about 2 years since I've shampooed my hair. I do clean my hair with
right.
and other stuff, and it's worked out really well. I have very curly hair type and
stunning hair.
Thank you. And curly hair, it needs a lot of moisture, and so it's great for this whole no shampoo thing. But anyway, that's a little bit of a diversion. If you're curious, you can email us show@sexandsciencehour.com to find out more if you want to hear more about that. But moving right along, you also need a license. No, you don't need a license. You don't just need a license. You need to be a vet if you want to massage animals in a place in Arizona.
To massage animals?
Yeah.
How dare you rub the belly of your dog without, being a veterinarian, without 8 years of college?
This one has 6 months in jail. It's practicing
6 months
veterinary medicine without a license.
Well, it's only if you collect money, right? I mean, so if you're like a pet...
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would assume, but, if you're a pet sitter which is a very common practice and a good one for when people are traveling the world or just traveling around.
Yeah, what's considered a massage? If you kind of just, oh, good boy, and you just touch the dog, like, is that a massage?
Yeah, I don't know. If it's like any other law in the U.S., it's as vague as possible so that it can be used against the maximum amount of people.
Exactly. Florists in Louisiana, you have to get a license to become a florist, and getting that license requires going in front of a board of your competitors,
right?
Which are the already licensed florists, and then they vote on how good your flower arrangements are.
And how well you set the bouquet. This is an amazing case of just absolute government ridiculousness that you have to prove, yes, I can set a nice bouquet. Value is subjective, folks. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. How could you possibly judge what a good-looking bouquet is?
That's just a blatant thing. I mean, how could you possibly argue that's for public safety or whatever?
Yeah.
And there was actually, I think the Institute for Justice, which is a public interest law firm that kind of like sues governments who have these ridiculous licensing laws that crush entrepreneurs. They actually sued the state and won in 2010. So now you don't have to have a license anymore, which that's great, but they're going to keep popping up more of these inane regulations. The second one, which was also an Institute for Justice case, was hair braiding. And this is black hair braiding.
Oh.
And so there was like a woman who started a hair braiding business in her home, and it was in a salon. So she was doing this in a professional salon, and she got arrested and dragged out of the salon in handcuffs because she was practicing cosmetology without a license.
What?
And not only that, but if she had gone to beauty school to get a cosmetology license, there was nothing in the curriculum about African hair braiding.
Well, of course not. What kind of crap? Look, we need to go back in time. We need a time machine right now, and we need to arrest every single Egyptian for practicing cosmetics without a cosmetology
yeah, they were
license
using lead too.
Or education.
There's lead in their lipstick.
We got to do something about this. Come on, stop.
Oh yeah. It's pretty insane. I mean, and you could argue like this is how government keeps people down.
Sure.
You can't break into a business like this. You can't just start braiding hair. Who do you think you are? You don't have the proper license. You didn't give us your money and ask us permission. So
insanity.
Oh yeah. Interior designers. A couple of states have licensing of interior designers, and that seems like a pretty clear-cut case of protectionism.
Sure.
One interior designer who was testifying to some state legislature to try to get a law passed that would regulate interior design claimed that deregulating the interior design industry would be contributing to 88,000 deaths every year.
This is nuts. Well, they're all nuts. But this one, actually, I had an occasion with an interior designer, okay, where I said, and people can laugh and find this weird, that's fine. I said, no, I want the couch to be 4 feet away from the wall. And I want there to be a gap behind there because I actually, oddly enough, I kind of, at the time, I was pretty young, but I liked sleeping like encapsulated behind the couch on the floor. I know that sounds weird, right?
Oh, but you're a unique individual, Brian.
I am. It was a studio apartment. That's how I wanted it.
Yeah.
And she freaked out. It's like, no, you can't do it. Believe me, you don't want that. I'm like, no, I know I want that. This is how I like to sleep, and it was this mess. And so my point is that, again, value is subjective. How can you possibly say what the rules are for on how a place should get set up that there needs to be regulation? Because I bet in those regulations, it's saying, the couch needs to be, 3 feet away from a power outlet and against the wall.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, as soon as the person leaves, I'm going to move it. So why even bother with the law?
I bet it's about building codes and fire hazards and all that stuff, which it's very dubious.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, Brian, you know what they say. There's those who just want to be left alone and those who just won't leave them alone. That's what Ernie Hancock says anyway, our friend.
That's pretty good.
Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of those. There's half the list to go and we're running out of time. But thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Sex and Science Hour, and we'll be back next Thursday with another show for you all. You've just heard Sex and Science Hour.
Game over. Play again next week.